This is how we ride. This is how we do.
How did things go when y'all tried to do this Droop Rule? And what is your true opinions on it? Because that seemed to stir the world of late model racing up more than anything.
It did, and it goes right back to the good old boys club, and that's not how we do things, and we don't want to do that. And but another thing, and I think me walking into it being somewhat naive to how things have been done, maybe it was a good thing and a bad thing. Like the first race we went to, and this is back when we were checking deck heights before the feature, and we're in Screven, Georgia, trying to check deck heights in the dark in an uneven pit area with holes and rocks and shit everywhere, and you're trying to check to see if this thing's at 39 inches. Meanwhile, their big tire guy that was just riding on the car, got it sucked down, and now you're like, well, it's 39 3/4, but whatever, that's good enough. It was just a really antiquated way of trying to check it. I mean, I felt like we were absolutely wasting our time. So in the meantime, the Droop Rule had been talked about, and when I first started, people were talking about it. I know Ray Cook started it for a safety issue or safety reasons.
And for people who are naive, what is the Droop Rule for? What was the purpose behind it? Wasn't it because the cars were just getting a little bit the checking the deck height was, and all this was kind of trying to keep the cars basically from halfway being upside down while they're going around the track, kind of, right?
Well, I mean, I think that was the reasoning Ray came up with it, which is not a bad reason by any means.
And it raises that left side or something like that too, and gets some air.
It does, but that's the thing. That's the reason those cars look the way they do now, is they're trying to get the left rear corner up to try and get the spoiler in the air to try and get downforce. And it just, like I said, the whole way of checking it in the dirt on uneven on ground. It just didn't make sense. I mean, and plus, I mean, there was guys that would literally zip tie their springs down and just roll through there. And as soon as they got on the racetrack, they'd jerk the wheel and it'd break the zip tie, and now their car's up 3 inches higher than everybody else.
Wow. You personally viewed this happen, I guess?
Yeah.
And that's illegal, correct? So, that's it.
Well, I mean, is it or isn't it? Like they passed the height
pre-race.
check.
Pre-race.
Yeah. So I felt like it was a really, like, I almost felt like we should just stop doing it altogether. Like, I'd rather not even worry about checking deck heights. But in the meantime, Tom Deary, who was at World Racing Group, and a couple other people had been working on maybe implementing a Droop Rule. I think their reasoning was more for safety. But once we got to talking about it, and I got with Kenny, and it was like, man, this is a much more consistent way to check height. It's after the race. Nobody's in a hurry. You can find flat, level ground. You can measure it the same way every time. And it to me, it just seemed like a much more consistent way to try and keep everyone's height in the same ballpark. Because the other thing is, the local teams, they would literally just lower their deck to where it was 39, and they'd go out there and they'd race. Well, the teams that have the money and the technology and all the stuff they put into it, they'd get their stuff to sit down at 39, but when they're on the racetrack, they're probably 4 to 5 inches higher than that local team that passed the same rule, and now is at a huge disadvantage. So I would say that's probably a lot of the reason there was some pushback, is because I think some teams felt like they had a pretty big advantage, on the racetrack, and they didn't like that. But it goes back to it's just not something they've always done, and they don't like change. So I know that not just myself, but Kenny and other series directors and tech guys have all taken some heat over the Droop Rule, but I still really, really believe that it is a much more consistent way to check the height.
And then the argument is, let's just all go the XR route and get rid of this thing. What's the negatives to doing that?
Well, I like I said, I've mentioned to plenty of teams that didn't like the idea. I said, that's fine. Let's just get rid of the Droop Rule, but let's get rid of half the spoiler. Let's take it from 8 to 4 inches. Let's just do it that way, and then we don't have to check anything. If everyone's on the same playing field and there is no height rule or deck rule or anything, then it is what it is, I guess. I mean, if everyone can do it, then everyone can do it. But, definitely when XR switched, and then the way they were checking it, and all the things that we really knew would happen at that first race happened. You got guys riding on the cars, you got guys cutting their T-bar and ratchet strapping it down to get it lower. I mean, there was that just opened up a whole nother can. But I just, if everyone wants to keep checking deck heights and everyone wants to keep everyone kind of in the same playing field, I personally felt like the Droop Rule was probably the best way to go about it at the moment. There might be a better way. Obviously, nobody's come up with it, but at some point there might be a better way to do it, and if that happens, then that's good too.
This is how we ride, this is how we do. Ride mud slide.